This is a part 2 video. Someone emailed me and had a problem, said that the information in the first video about repairing subfloor damage from water leaks around your toilet, they said that they didn't have enough information. So let's see if I can put a little more information in this video. And of course, if there isn't enough information in this video, feel free to send me another question, leave it in the comment area, and I will see if I can address that issue. So it looked like what they had would have been a difficult time because the pipe was high. You know, in this video I rotated the drainage pipe 90 degrees and ran it through the floor joist, which of course most of the time is a big no-no. And here's a view of it from the bottom back to the top. Well, now, if you can install some blocks, install them on the side. And I'm going to provide you with a few more ideas. And of course, it's going to be difficult to attach the blocks to the joist. So you can always use screws and screw down from the plywood into the block and create a nice solid connection there. So use some screws. Make sure you don't drill into your fingers or any of the drain pipes. And then you can put a piece of plywood in this area. And here I have a larger piece of plywood, but you know, if it needs to be smaller, that's fine. You're going to be able to carry this load here with the around the edges here. And then simply screw down, and you'll see where the screws will pull the plywood up if you think that you're going to have a difficult time with that. And then put a piece of plywood around the corner, around the pipe, and then drill through that. Now, the only problem with this method here is that you're not going to be able to attach the flange securely to the flooring. So it's just one option here. If you can access it from the bottom, another idea would be to use larger pieces of plywood. And again, keep in mind, I'm just throwing out some different ideas to get one. You might be able to use a combination of these. And of course, this would go around the toilet flange. And of course, you would screw the plywood to the subflooring to your plywood backing. Now, if you can't access it from the bottom, cannot access it from the bottom, then you might need to cut these into pieces. Your 2 pieces might need to be cut into 4 pieces. And I just kind of made a few different shapes here. You know, you can cut it straight if that'll work, cut it at an angle if that'll work. You might need to get a little creative here. Now, here's where you might need to put a little more thought into the repair. After you cut the pieces, you might need to set them on top of the drywall or plaster, and then kind of think of how you're going to put it together to where you can put it together the most effective method. So what I did here was put the 2 pieces down here. They're just sitting on top of the drywall here. And then this would be assembled first. So you'd put 1 piece in and then screw the plywood down from the subflooring into your plywood backing, and then do the same here. And then this piece right here, if you can, reach under here and put another piece in here for additional backing to tie these 2 pieces together. Let's go ahead and remove the drywall to give you a better view of what's happening. Here's the piece of backing I was talking about that would go underneath your 2 pieces of additional backing. And this, of course, is just going to tie these pieces together. And again, you can do this in a variety of different ways. I'm just kind of throwing this out there. This plywood can be helpful. And again, you can always use 2x10s or 2x4s in here if you need to also. Now, another thing, if you can, after you put this piece together, and you can always put this piece together before you slide it in, which that's what I would be suggesting you would do to this next part. You know, the drywall, of course, would be here. If you could, put a piece underneath here and then attach these together and then pull it up and put it in place. Here's what it would look like. Now, I went ahead and extended this piece a little further. If you can, make sure you fill this whole area. If you can't, you can't. I understand if the pipe's too high or it's going to be difficult to put it together. But if not, This will not, you won't be able to put a screw in here if there's nothing to screw to. So if you run this plywood past, you'd be able to put a screw into all of these except for this one right here. So keep that in mind. So if you cannot use the other method where you're going to cut the plywood in half and slide it under the flanges as mentioned in the first video, then it wouldn't be a bad idea to cut some type of a spacer in here. And that spacer would need to be cut in half, I would imagine, because you're going to need to get it under the flange. I have the pipe out of the way here, but you wouldn't have that situation. So you would have a situation like this. Before you put the plywood filler piece in here, you're going to need to put these little filler pieces in. And of course, they're going to need to be cut in half or even into quarters to slide them underneath the flange. And make sure that you don't have any of the cuts lining up with the screw holes. That was not going to be good. So make sure the cuts are off to the side, and you can always glue this too. You can always glue the filler piece in. Let's go back to this one. You can always, get some glue, stick it underneath there, and I would imagine you could even glue it to the plumbing flange too. But well, I don't know if we getting a little carried away. But use some glue or some type of sealant, shove it in there, and you could even put all the screws in there you need to for your filler pieces before you put in the plywood for that. And anyway, that is it for the video. Get a little creative with the plywood. What I drew in here is one way to do this, but it's not going to be the only way to do it. I mean, you might end up with just being able to put a scrap piece of plywood in the corner. You might need to make the opening a little larger, and you might need to poke a hole in from the bottom of the drywall to fix everything. But you have got to get the flange firmly attached to the subflooring or to where it's not going to move, or move very little. Because once you put all this back together and you put your toilet on and you get on the toilet and this toilet is moving back and forth, guess what? You're going to end up with a leak here in the future and be right back to where you started.